Hi, I'm Beverly Harzog, host of Your Personal Economy. You can't control what goes on in the world in terms of inflation or even the price of groceries, but you can control your own personal economy. And I'm going to show you just how to do that because the way you spend your money is the way you spend your life. And I want you to have the best life possible. Welcome to episode number 19 Rebuild Your Credit in 4 Easy Steps. I can't promise that you're going to be able to rebuild it in a hurry because the length of time this will take depends on exactly why you need to rebuild your credit. And we're going to talk about that and more. And first, we're going to start with your credit report. And we're going to check that to make sure everything is in good shape. The very first thing I want you to do, this is step number 1, and this is really easy. I want you to go to annualcreditreport.com, and you're going to request free credit reports from Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. If you would prefer to see your credit reports in Spanish, that is available. And get a pencil, paper, or send yourself a text message. I've got phone numbers for you. All right. So for Experian, and this is to get your credit report in Spanish, call 888-397-3742. For Equifax, 888-378-4329. And TransUnion, 800-916-8800. Look at your credit report, and I want you to start with personal data. And you want to be sure that your name is spelled correctly, that your birth date is correct, that your social security number is accurate. See, what we're going to do in this step is make sure that your credit report represents you and there isn't anything inaccurate on it that can bring down your score. Okay. And really, even personal data is important so that your file doesn't get mixed up with someone else's. I've seen that happen and it's had terrible consequences for some people. So we're just making sure that you're starting out with a clean slate here, that your credit report is in good shape. All right, so check your personal data, and then I want you to check all of your credit-related accounts. Now, your credit cards, auto loans, mortgages, anything that's showing up on your credit report. First, make sure that they are all your accounts that you opened. This is a good way to catch fraud. Somebody may have opened an account in your name that you don't even know about. When you can check your credit card accounts online all day long, and you're not going to know if somebody opened a new account in your name because you're not checking that account. But it does show up on your credit report. So be sure all that information is accurate. Now, if you're rebuilding credit and it's because something bad has happened, okay, like a bankruptcy or even a late fee can drag down your score. You want to look at the negative items section and check all the dates. Verify that what's listed there did actually happen and verify the dates because most of these items will take 7 years to fall off your credit report. There's a type of bankruptcy that actually takes 10 years. So you want to be sure that the dates are correct. And when the dates get close to the time limit of those items being on your report, you want to begin checking so that you know when it's supposed to fall off. And if it doesn't fall off when you think it should, like it's been 7 years, you can call and inquire about it. That's why it's important to be sure that the dates are accurate because I don't want you to just trust it's going to fall off. I want you to trust, okay, but verify. So we've done all that and you feel good that your report looks good or you don't. Now you're going to want to contact each of these bureaus if you see an error on any one of them, okay? Be very diligent about this because anything that can lower your score, well, that's points you've lost for no good reason. So let's take care of that. Next, we're going to talk about another step that takes a teeny bit of research, but it's still easy. We're going to talk about your budget and tracking expenses so that you can make payments on time. Ready for step number 2? Take a look at your budget and see if you have a way to track spending. This is really important. I think of budgeting and tracking your spending as your financial foundation. That's how important it is. It's like the foundation of a home. You can't really feel safe in that home and just enjoy yourself and relax in your home unless you know you have a solid foundation that keeps you and your family safe. Well, that's the way a budget is, because if you don't have a budget and if you don't track your spending, you're going to spend more money than you ever thought possible. Okay. I'm just going to be blunt about that. Unless you're some kind of a genius who can hold all this information in your head, how much you spent at the grocery store. Maybe you went 3 times last week. How much did you spend each time? How much did you spend last month? I can't keep track of this stuff in my head, and you probably can't either. So be sure you find a way to budget. Now, you can do it the old fashioned way with pencil and paper. You can create your own Excel spreadsheets. I know plenty of people who have done that. Or you can use software for free, such as a budgeting app. Now, I used to use Mint and I loved Mint. I talked about it all the time. It was my way of keeping track of all of my money. I loved the visuals that came with it, all the pie charts and setting limits and categories. When my kids were teenagers and they got their first jobs, I showed them how to use Mint so that they would have some sort of tool to see the big picture of how much money they were making and what they could do with that. And just some good life skills about how to track money. So Mint went away at the end of 2023. There is a Mint mobile app, but it didn't have everything that I needed. So I started looking around for a new one, did a lot of research, and I settled on Rocket Money. There is a small monthly fee for that, but you might have to pay a little bit more to get everything you need. Now, I wasn't looking for an app that helped me track investments. My husband and I, we have our own way of tracking our investments. We've got some complex Excel sheets set up, and we know exactly what our net worth is at any moment of the day. We're a bit nerdy with all this stuff, but there are apps that will do that for you. But Rocket Money met my needs. If you're a couple and you want something specifically geared to couples, I like something called Honeydew, and that's DUE. Honeydew. That's cute. And You Need a Budget is also a really good one, whether you're a couple or you're just a single person, or you want to be able to have the features that come with that as well as share information. So there are a lot of options out there. Do the research and find one that you like. The reason you want to do this is because I want you to have a line item in your budget for any credit card you're using. I want you to be sure to list all of your loans, like student loans, car loans, your fixed expenses, and that's like your mortgage or your rent. That's not going to change from month to month in general. And then you've got your discretionary expenses. And basically, what I'm talking about here are needs versus wants. Now, I'm working on an episode that's going to be published later on this summer, and it's all about how to do your budget. So that's coming up. For right now, you just need to know some basics. And most of these apps will have categories listed for you, and you just have to fill them in. So I want you to do that so you can see what your cash flow is. How much do you have left over each month? And this will help you decide if you've got debt and that's dragged your score down. That will help you decide what you're going to do to help get rid of that debt. And next, I'm going to talk about different management tools that you can use to try to raise that score up. And there are options. I've got options that involve credit cards, options that have nothing to do with credit cards. Okay. This is all about rebuilding your credit score. So stick with me, and we are going to tackle step 3. All right, here we are at step 3. Using credit building tools to help raise your credit score. I have a couple of options for you here. One involves a credit card and one does not involve a credit card. So let's first talk about credit cards. If you already currently have credit cards, I mean, that could be even part of your problem if you've got credit card debt. All right, first, I want you to focus on your credit utilization ratio. Now, here's how you calculate that. Don't go away. This is easy. Your credit utilization ratio is the amount of credit you've used compared to the amount of credit you have available. So let's say your credit limit is $1,000. If you have a $500 balance and you're like maybe carrying that balance month to month, that's a 50% ratio. $500 divided by 1,000. Let's say you only have $300 balance. 300 divided by 1,000 is 30%. Now, as long as your utilization ratio does not exceed 30%, it will not impact your score. This is very important. I'm not saying be sure it's 30%. I'm saying that's your maximum, okay? And if you really want to boost your score the most, you need to keep that utilization ratio under 10%. Most of us who have scores in the 800s do that. I average around 7% utilization ratio. My advantage is that I've had credit for a very long time. So I have a long history. I've got high credit limits. So all of those things help me to have a low utilization ratio. But even when you're just starting out or coming back from some bad credit experiences, you can shoot for 30% to avoid hurting your score any further. So that's real important. So let's say you don't have a credit card and you've hurt your score, it's terrible. You can't get an unsecured credit card unless you go for one that has a really high interest rate. And I'm not kidding when I say really high interest rate because there are some credit cards that target those with bad credit that have interest rates in the high 30s. Okay, you have to be really, really careful if you're going to target one of those unsecured credit cards that focus on that demographic. Now, you're much safer, in my opinion, with a secured credit card if you want to get a credit card. Let's say you got into trouble with credit, but it wasn't because you couldn't handle credit cards. Let's say it was medical debt, or you lost your job, or you got a divorce and you became financially devastated because of that. So many things can happen to us that are not self inflicted. So I want to be sure that I make it clear that I'm not criticizing anybody who has debt, for goodness sakes. I've had debt myself. I understand it. And I did it to myself. Mine was self inflicted. But I still came back from it. Okay. But what you want to do with a credit card is use that responsibly, and then you can help build your score. Now, if you stick with a secured credit card, there are many major issuers right now that offer them. I think they understand that many people during the pandemic, especially, got into trouble because maybe they lost their jobs or their hours got cut or they got locked down. I mean, there's so many ways people lost money during that period of time. So if anything like that has happened to you, man, I really understand that. You get nothing but empathy from me. Okay. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to start researching secured credit cards. Some of them are going to have an annual fee, some of them don't, and they even have rewards. It's possible to get rejected for a secured credit card, but that's if maybe a bankruptcy just happened recently. Most secured credit card issuers do take into consideration that a bankruptcy could be in your past. So they try not to make it impossible to get these cards, but they do have to have some protections in place, just to limit their own risk. But with a secured credit card, you put down a deposit, you get a credit card that looks like a credit card. There's no stigma attached to this. You make your payments on time as long as that lender reports your payments to the major credit bureaus. You're going to build credit again with that card. Now, remember the ratio. We're going to keep that utilization ratio below 30%, preferably around 10%. And that's hard with a secured credit card because Your deposit often determines what your credit limit is, but you don't want to put down a whole lot of money on this card. So let's say you decide to do $500. Okay, well, try not to have a balance higher than $50 if that's the case. And that can help raise your score. Okay, so think of this new secured credit card as a tool for building your credit, not for going out and spending and getting things that way. Okay. What if you don't want to use a credit card, or you had a bad experience with credit cards, or you just opposed to credit cards in general? I get that. Okay. Credit cards are not for everybody. And if that's you, I have another option. Consider a credit builder loan. Now, the way this works, you go to a bank, maybe a community bank or even a credit union, and they have these loans, usually ranging from $300 to $1,000 in that range right there. Terms will differ in terms of the APR or any fees, and you take out a credit builder loan. This means they keep the money. So let's say you got a loan for $1,000. The financial institution involved will hold that money and you make payments on it. And when you pay off that loan, you get the money back. Okay. And in the meantime, they're reporting your payments, your timely payments, I might add, to the major credit bureaus. Be sure you ask and make sure they're reporting to at least one, preferably all three, but at least one major credit bureau. Okay. Ask about that, confirm that. And that's a great way to build credit without even using a credit card. Now, other options for those who think they can't get a credit card on their own, or they'd rather just not do that right now. They want to postpone that, maybe just for a few months or forever, whatever meets your needs. You can think about being an authorized user on someone else's card, say a parent or someone close to you who has great credit and trusts you and would allow you to do that for a little bit of time to raise your score. Others swear by co-signing. I'm not a fan of co-signing on credit cards, on loans, on anything, okay? Because I've seen it destroy family relationships. I've seen it destroy friendships. So be sure if you enter into that kind of an arrangement with someone that you put everything in writing and have a clear understanding of what will take place if something goes wrong. Let's say you lose your job and you're still trying to make loan payments. You got a cosigner or credit card payments. Be sure you consider all the things that can go wrong and what will happen during that time. What would your steps be that you'll take? Okay, I lost my job. My goal is to get one within the next 6 weeks. That could be hard to do, but you can always find probably like a stopgap job, a kind of job like DoorDash delivery, something like that, where you get a temporary job while you're looking for a better job. So options like that, but really do consider everything, because I don't want anything to go wrong with your current relationships. Because when you do have money issues, like trying to come back from bad credit, you need all the support you can get. Okay, and I want you to have that. All right, coming up next is a really important one. Step 4, making timely payments. And that's on time payments, not just with credit cards or loans, everything. You made it to step 4. Congratulations. And you are on your way to rebuilding your credit. But this is a really important step. You have to make all of your payments, all of your bills on time. Of course, it's important to make your credit card bill on time. If you pay a credit card bill late, you could end up with a penalty rate if it gets late enough, up into like the 60-day range. And they can be close to 30%. Not all issuers charge that, but some of them do have a penalty rate. You'll get a late fee. It can end up on your credit report for 7 years. There are all kinds of reasons not to be late on a credit card bill. But here's something most people don't know. It's possible, it's not likely, but it's possible that if you ignore a bill like your cell phone bill long enough, or your rent payment long enough, that could get reported to a credit bureau, and that will drag down your score for a long time. So pay all of your bills on time. Now, We talked about memory before. Don't try to remember how much you spent where, because, our brains really aren't designed to hold on to that many details over a long period of time. So I want you to set up reminders. Set one up on your calendar, whether you keep a calendar on your phone, a Google Calendar online or an Apple, do whatever it takes to be sure you've got a calendar reminder that that's happening. Set up text messages, set up email reminders. With credit card issuers, you could set up a multitude of ways to remind yourself. Another way is to set up automatic payments on certain types of bills. Okay, the trick here is to be sure that you always have enough money in that account that you're linking to for automatic payments, that you don't end up in an insufficient funds situation, because that is no fun. Okay. You want to be sure that the system that you set up, and we're talking about structure here, very similar to your financial foundation with the budgeting and tracking your expenses. Okay. So you want to have a structure in place, and you've got multiple reminders coming from different directions, and you won't miss those payments, because payment history is 35% of your FICO score. Think about that. That's over a third of your score. And we talked about the credit utilization ratio in step number 3, and that's 30%, your available credit. So if you make your payments on time and keep a low utilization ratio, that totals up to 65% of your FICO score. So you're going to go a long way towards rebuilding your score and building a good, solid credit history as soon as you start paying on time and keeping those low balances. Thanks so much for joining me for episode number 19, How to Rebuild Your Credit in 4 Easy Steps. We talked about the credit utilization ratio and how a high ratio can really bring down your score. Well, having credit card debt and getting out of it is a great way to rebuild your credit, but it can sometimes be really difficult to stay motivated, especially if it's a long haul ahead of you. Coming up next in episode number 20, I'm going to talk about bouncing back from unfortunate circumstances, such as financial resilience after you've had some credit card debt, or maybe you've lost your job, or maybe you've gone through a divorce. We all end up in situations sometimes where we have to stay motivated and just kind of get ourselves through it. So I've got some insight for you coming up next in episode 20. See you there.